New radio travel update.
Dealing with COVID-19 is uncharted territory, and everyone has different challenges. People may feel anxious, down, or overwhelmed. For some, these feelings can lead to changes in sleep patterns, an increased use of alcohol or drugs, or withdrawing from the people around them. If you know someone who's having a hard time coping, you can help by reaching out to talk and listen. To learn more about how you can help someone in need, call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-TALK. Brought to you by the state of Washington.
Your community radio station.
This is Cindy Bray, the host of Heartbeat Radio.
This is Paul Pierce, Star.
This is Paul Schneider today on the 73rd edition.
Hey, y'all, welcome to Travelers Guides to Venus. It says Ron Richard Godmothers. You guys know me.
Your home for information about the impact of the
coronavirus. Amongst many things that difficult about this virus is that it's
been devastating. They're really heartbreaking stories of people who have.
There isn't anyone that isn't impacted.
Shutting our schools down, including all athletic programs.
Your first-hand accounts.
We got here just to check, and I found out that I was positive.
A lot of people who know me, I'm still the first person they know.
But it was almost like you were patient zero for South Seattle. Your stories of community coming together.
Partner very heavily with Tacoma Urban League, who is doing some amazing work in response.
We're doing things for small businesses. We're giving out loans to small businesses.
And so I think it's very important that we have leaders who feel.
I cannot tell you we're calling 20, 30, 40 minutes.
This crisis in our community, we've been working to address it.
Rainier Avenue Radio, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Karen Z with Rainier Avenue Radio.
Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Rainier Avenue Radio.world. We got you covered. Local impact, global presence.
Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio.world and our weekly coverage of the impact of communities. Continuation of our series. I would like to thank everyone for joining us again here. And then again, now we are aware of the fact that we are and more focused on
Would you like to see when your favorite Rainier Avenue Radio show comes on? Check out our show schedule, updated weekly at RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio. This is Afternoons with Monique, recording live in Seattle, Washington, every Thursday at 1 p.m.
Good afternoon, Seattle. This is Monique Lee from Rainier Avenue Radio on the Afternoons with Monique show. Today we have a Steve Steinbrueck. Has contributed decades of his life in public service, and this coming November he is running for Port of Seattle Commission. Once again, he is on the commission at the moment, and he is running to retain his seat. And I have the pleasure of inviting Peter on the show today to share with our audience his work at the port and his vision for our city future. Please welcome to my show, Mr. Peter Steinbrueck. Good afternoon, Peter. How are you today?
Hello, Monique, and the pleasure is mine. Thank you so much for inviting me on your great show. I love this radio media outlet, and I've been on before with Mari Salisbury and others on the, and so thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure. So you are a longtime Seattleite. You were born and raised in King County, Seattle, I take it. What do you like most about Seattle?
Oh my gosh, there's so much that I like, but there's also a lot that troubles me these days because I was born in Seattle. I think I'm probably fourth generation Seattle native.
Mm-hmm.
The early part of the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of changes in this city over the years from
right.
my childhood. It was a great place to grow up when in my childhood. I love, the culture here. It's exciting, innovative, with people doing, really cool stuff. innovators, business, entrepreneurs, startups, and a respect for the environment, because without the environment, this beautiful environment we have, it wouldn't be the same. I have to also say I love the Pike Place Market because that's a very important part of my upbringing, and I can share more with you about that as well.
Yes, I saw your what do you call those stakes along the freeway, along the road, and I saw your artistic touch.
Thank you. I've used, this is the 9th campaign that I've used those signs for. I started on the Seattle City Council in 1997. I served 10 years, but I'm also an architect and I'm an urban strategist, which is a kind of a self-defined urban environmental policy expert in land use planning and design.
So are you a practicing architect right now?
Yes, I am. In fact, I have a house under design currently up in Port Townsend, and it's using a different part of my brain, if you will.
Right. Wow, we need balance. We need that. Yeah.
And I loved architecture and design. And I also believe in the design of cities. So there's buildings and there are entire cities. And I believe that cities should be well designed and at least, if necessary, everything we do is an intervention that affects the urban environment. And I take that very seriously. And I consider myself, to have some expertise in that area of urban design, and the quality of the living environment is so important.
So most of my listeners are probably too young to remember your father, who's another renowned architect in the Seattle area. In fact, I understand one of the parks in downtown Seattle next to Pike Place Market was named after him, which is quite an honor. And I recently learned all of this history while doing my homework for the show. So would you share with our audience his place in the Seattle landscape and how his legacy remains important to you?
Well, I would love to, Monique, and thank you for asking, because I learned my civic lessons alongside my father as a boy from age 7 to 14 as he battled to save the Pike Place Market from the wrecking ball of urban renewal, as it was called, when it was considered a blighted place, run down, and decrepit. And in fact, my dad saw the immigrant farmers there, many Japanese and others, Filipino, the merchants, the mom and pop shops, the Italian grocers, all of those things that I experienced as a child. And he said, no, this is not a place to tear down. If we do that, all of these people are going to be displaced. And so he fought City Hall for 8 years during my formative years. So I draw my civics lessons from that experience, collecting signatures, selling little buttons, let's keep the market, visiting the various shops and produce farmers in the market. I fell in love, but I got my civics lessons at the same time. I learned about what populism means, grassroots organizing, signature gathering. It was the first initiative in modern time launched by citizens who were unhappy with City Hall at the time. And so that's where I, get a lot of my community values and civic lessons from.
That's wonderful. Now, you are currently a Port of Seattle commissioner. How long have you had this position? And tell us about your other community and public service.
Absolutely. Well, I joined the Seattle Port Commission, which is a county-wide government, by the way, of special purpose. It's not, even though it has Seattle in the name, it's county-wide. And its influence is much bigger than that. But I joined in 2018. I was elected with nearly 60% of the voters in King County in a contested race of 9 people.
Oh, wow.
Started. So it was a challenging race, but I prevailed. And I had been out of office for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Architecture and urban design and environmental policy development. So I've only served less than 4 years. And I feel like it's been a lifetime of things, activities, and some great accomplishments. And the other part of your question was other parts of my community service. Well, I love the Green Seattle Partnership. Planting trees is a passion of mine because I think it's one of the best, easiest things we can do for our planet, for climate protection, healthier environments, and cleaner air. So I work there as a volunteer, some weekends and other times. I have helped support the Seattle Public Library Foundation to support books and literacy for children and adults who maybe haven't had the opportunities to learn and to learn from books and to have literacy.
Right.
So those are some of the things I've done. I have worked in environmental causes, of course, and a variety of other things. American Institute of Architects and green building, activities around the country, those kinds of things.
Now, I understand you served in the city council for some time before you, step into this role as a Port of Seattle commissioner. What did you do for the council?
Oh, sure. Well, first of all, I was assigned the Housing and Human Services Committee in my first few years, and responsible for affordable housing and addressing the homeless crisis, which it's gotten a whole lot worse, I'm sorry to say, a whole lot worse.
Yes.
I took that on and looked for best practice strategies to prevent homelessness in the first place, because I think you start at the front end.
Right.
And then we need to have a supply of affordable housing that has to be subsidized, because that's the only way you're going to get affordability for those who truly need it and can't find work. Maybe seniors, older people, people with disabilities, and just plain poor people who can't afford the cost, Right. So I worked on that. I also was voted president of the council after 2 years, and I was also voted president of the Port Commission after 2 years. So I don't know the pattern there. I get the big jobs.
Right.
It was a big tag. I also, besides that, I chaired the Land Use Development and Urban Planning Committee, which was squarely in line with my professional background. So overseeing public works projects and land use and zoning. For example, I wrote the zoning code that allows Amazon to move into South Lake Union.
Oh.
Because it was previously zoned warehouse industrial.
I remember.
But it was no longer being used for warehouse and industrial. And they wanted to establish their first major headquarters there.
Right.
They moved in from where they were up
PacMed.
PacMed
building.
And they were expanding, but at that time they were only they only needed 500,000 square feet, but they had a vision for millions of new square footage. So I helped work out the terms so that they could relocate. And frankly, I think Amazon is a terrific organization. They can be better, but they've made some major climate commitments and pledges. They're supporting community in many ways these days, and they hire tens of thousands of people in good upward mobility jobs. So I just put a plug in for Amazon.
Oh, that's great, because we are having a lot of talk today these days with the re-election of mayor, where the corporate tax and the fight between different ideology, how to balance the disparity in income. Where Amazon, while contributing to the city, is being blamed for a lot of the overcrowding and social urban issues. So
Monique, you're absolutely right. And the bigger you are, the bigger the target you become for these kinds of attacks. I don't believe in taxing away business that is hiring thousands and thousands of people in good
and bring wealth to the community.
Yeah, it is a manifestation of our prosperity of the region. Why do we want to send them away? They've already noticed, Seattle, that things are just getting too, they're just uncomfortable here and resistant. And so they're looking, they're expanding rapidly on the east side. So it'll be our loss at east side's gain if they decide to move out. And it also sends a chilling effect on other businesses that may want to start or expand in Seattle, because it has grown into a very anti-business climate here. Now, let me just say, Monique, I very much take to heart the concerns over income disparity. It's a national trend. It's been happening everywhere, especially acute in areas like ours that are prospering. We do have to have a better balance there.
Right.
And we need to share the wealth and prosperity more equitably.
Right.
But taxing, the heck out of business is going to drive them away and they'll take the jobs with them.
Now, I understand the balancing act that this has to have for the mayor and, also probably the port, because I believe now I'm going to have you explain to our viewer the role of the Port of Seattle in our beautiful and, I'm happy to say, big city.
Oh, well, after. Well, I'm glad you asked, because it's difficult to tell the true story of the port and all the great things that we do that support, our jobs, quality jobs in our region, not just Seattle, but the entire region, the state. We own and operate SeaTac Airport, and it's been growing exponentially, as you know, and that has its external impacts on surrounding communities, but we're working on those issues. The port owns and operates SeaTac Airport. We have an alliance with the Port of Tacoma for our seaport container and shipping cargo internationally. China is our number one trade partner, and Vietnam and Taiwan. Those are and Japan. Those are our top 4 trade partners.
Really?
Import and export. And so that's a very, very important mainstay for our regional and statewide economy, for quality jobs that it provides. And the same is true at the airport. These are upward mobility, trade jobs, dock worker jobs that pay middle income wages.
Right.
Nobody else is doing that, in government. We're creating and supporting the job growth of this region that is bringing back the middle class. And that's what fills my sails more than anything, is to see more people get these quality jobs. We also have Fisherman's Terminal, which is the hub, the home port of the North Pacific Alaska fishing fleet. 40% of all the seafood caught, wild caught seafood in North America comes through our Fisherman's Terminal and our maritime terminals at Pier 91. And much of it, some of it's processed, frozen, and much of it is great fresh seafood, as we know, which I love. My brother is a commercial fisherman, and so is my son. And I've done a little bit of it myself, and it's darn hard work up in Alaska, I'll tell you that.
40%.
Some of the things we do, and we try to do it as equitably as we can through an equity-centered approach. Increasingly, we're working on those goals to share the wealth and opportunity and jobs.
Right. And what is your role on the commission at the moment? I know you've been there since 2018.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. Well, as I mentioned, I was elected by there's 5 commissioners. We're elected at large throughout the county. They elected me to be port president last year, and it was before COVID hit. So that was in January. March, we were hit with COVID. That took my entire year. I was not able to do any other work. I was working round the clock in a crisis mode with the leadership of the port to manage the crisis, the health crisis first, safety and health first at the airport, our construction projects. We try to keep people working when many people could not work. That was number one. And to keep our operations going, even though like at SeaTac Airport, it was down to like 10% of the normal air travel at one point. Likewise, the seaport dropped about 12-15% in volumes, but we kept everything going. We didn't lay off anybody at the port. We learned how to work virtually, so that was a tough year. We're still not out of it, and I'm still working on equitable COVID recovery for our region. I also chair the Sustainability, Environment, and Climate Committee of the port. So I'm the lead environmental policy position as in my role as port commissioner and chair of along with Commissioner Bowman. We laid the port policy on environmental sustainability. I'm very excited about that. I have a number of other assignments, but we don't have time to go into them all. But those are some of my key assignments. Industrial lands and waterfront are also an area that I work in, and restoring the West Seattle Bridge, which has wreaked havoc on everybody, including the port.
Traffic, lots of traffic.
So I worked very hard this past year to get the mayor to decide to repair and restore the bridge as quickly as possible for service, for return to service.
Are we back? The West Seattle Bridge, is it back in operation now?
No, it won't be open until next year. It's under repairs right now, but the alternative was to build a $10 billion glitzy new bridge that would have taken maybe 10 years or more to get completed, and let alone funded. So thankfully, Mayor Durkin made the right choice there.
Okay, so next year we'll have the bridge back, because I have to go around, down south and back, and to go get to Alki.
And as you know, our harbor island is right smack in the middle there, and dock workers need to get to the docks to unload the cargo that is piling up out there. And that bridge was critical to the transportation network.
Well, you are on Rainier Avenue Radio, and I'm Monique Lee, your host on the Afternoons with Monique show. And today we have Mr. Peter Steinbrueck. Now, you have to correct how I pronounce your
Steinbrueck, like a brook, like a.
Okay, Steinbrueck.
That's how I don't mind if people mess it up. I do sometimes myself, but it's Steinbrueck. And Victor Steinbrueck Park was named after my father down in Pike Place Market.
Yes, I visit the park, and someone told me about that recently as I was having you on, and I was like, oh, I went to that park. I never knew that that's his father. That's quite an honor. Your name is part of the city's landscape. That's wonderful. Yeah. Now, we're back on the show. I have a couple more questions I hope to ask you and share with our audience about the port. You share a little bit about your role and what the ports means to the region. As we all should know, there is a significant disruption in the national supply chain, which includes the unloading of large container ships, including here at the Port of Seattle. Can you please explain this problem from a Port of Seattle standpoint and what you're doing to help resolve this?
Great question, Monique. And I know a lot of people are baffled by what's going on. They think like the port is not operating efficiently. Well, let me explain what happened. Last year, we had a significant drop in, manufacturing internationally and in shipping. And so a lot of goods and consumer goods and products weren't getting to the markets in the United States. And we're, we are the seaport where all of those goods pass through. And so it started with the drop off in production, and then a surge in demand that resumed this year for those consumer products that people had, the supplies had dwindled. And so that sent off a surge of shipping. And it's not just Seattle, it's all up and down the West Coast and elsewhere. Los Angeles is far worse off than we are. So then you find when the ships arrive, there's no space to put the containers because they're all arriving at the same time with no coordination. And they have to sit out in the harbor and wait, until there's an area to unload the cargo. And then we have a shortage of truckers nationwide. And so there aren't enough truckers, there aren't enough truck chassis to haul this enormous surge. This is an anomaly. It's not the new normal. It is probably going to extend well into next year, but the likelihood is that we will eventually, that demand will balance out with the capacity of what the ports can have. The railroads are backed up, everywhere, the warehouses.
I wonder why that is, because not only at the port and railroad transportation, but it almost seemed like in every industry that I encounter, everyone is overly busy. Phone lines are always plugged up. You always have to wait for 10, 15 minutes, even for, phone service or any kind of service. So it seemed like a slowdown in the system where we don't have enough manpower. We have a lot of work, but not enough people to do them. Where is this? And you thinking this is an anomaly that we will get caught up with somehow next year?
I think that as far as the shipping backlog is, I think that will balance out. But and we're our economy is in a strange place after the COVID impacts, and people had lost their jobs. They're moving on to other jobs. There's huge demand for maritime jobs, by the way, that unmet demand for labor. and in the construction trades also. But people are moving around, and so we've kind of, everything's gotten jumbled up and mixed up. But the e-commerce is a big factor in driving this surge in demand, and people want things instantly. Amazon has played that up with, getting you within 24 hours.
Yeah.
And people love that. I can wait, frankly. I don't have to have something, like ice, like it's an ice cream or something. You got to have it right now. but so I think e-commerce is a big factor, and many of these distribution centers where all the products are on shelves waiting to be delivered to consumers. There's no rail service to those distribution centers.
Right.
It's not, the system wasn't designed for that. So truckers, the trucks have to haul from the seaport to the distribution centers, or from the seaport or the trains have to take them, and then they have to transfer intermodally to trucks that then go to these huge distribution centers where Costco,
Amazon
Walmart,
warehouses,
Amazon, all those big companies, that's where retailing is gone. I mean, that's just the reality.
Absolutely. I have one last question, and I think our show has got about 2 minutes to wind down. So this summer, there was a substantial delay in unloading a ship with Israeli connections in violation of federal law. Why did it take the port so long to find a protest area for the protesters so the ship could be unloaded?
Well, it was a massive interagency coordination effort. Because international shipping is regulated by the federal government, not by us. It's interstate commerce, and so they had to get all the different agencies in line, federal, state, local, with a coordinated plan. We didn't know quite what was going to happen. Let me say, we cannot have our supply chain disrupted. It's already been disrupted.
Right.
Without protest. I'm fully in support of First Amendment rights to protest. But it has to be, you can't shut down the port at the same time. You can't block the streets and to prevent trucks from getting through. You cannot stop the ships, regardless of how important the political issue might be. And so we just had to coordinate that. And the fact is that we didn't shut down the port. We never did. And we didn't. What happened was the Port of Seattle is a landlord port, which is to say operators, private businesses basically handle the shipping and transfer. They chose not to unload for a pause while they work. And the same with ILW longshore workers. They were concerned for their safety if they went to work to unload the ships. So it was actually the operator and the longshore who jointly asked for a pause to get things in order and work out, negotiate with the protesters a coordinated approach to allowing First Amendment protests and assembly. And they did that, and it was peaceful, and there was only a few days,
Right.
But as I said, we cannot allow our ships to be blockaded.
Right. Commerce has to keep on moving.
That's right.
So there is an article on the Seattle Times editorial about this. So everyone, if anyone interested in learning more about this issue, you can search for that. But that is the end of our show. Okay. Yes. Thank you so much for joining me today on Afternoons with Monique. Please stay tuned to watch. Yes.
And for more information, peterforport.org.
Right.
And there's also a great Seattle Times endorsement of me in their opinion column. So
that's
peterforport.org. You'll find my campaign platform there and more information. And feel free to contact me if you have questions or an interest in some area of policy. So thank you so much.
Terrific.
Thank you, Rainier Avenue Radio. It was great to be on your show.
Okay. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Peter. Have a good one, everyone.